Men can revolt as much as they like against God, but they cannot change the fact, the very nature of their existence, the very origin and purpose of their existence, which is God. Now, the modern world is refusing God. It's you watch these programs, these interviews on TV, and I didn't hear one mention of God. They think of the special suburbs outside of the big cities in France, full of immigrants. They talk a lot about immigration, about the Africans and the Asians and the Muslims that are flooding into these countries, organized and paid for by villains that seriously wish to and are succeeding in destroying these nations. And why does Almighty God allow them to do this? Because the nations deserve it. And these enemies of the nations, enemies of the Gentiles, they are in fact working for God. They are God's executioners, without being aware of it, of course. If they knew that they were serving God, they might stop persecuting their fellow human beings and paying for the destruction of the Western nations. This flood of non-Europeans and non-French foreigners not native to these Western nations, because the Western nations don't now deserve any better. They deserve to be destroyed because they are set on a course which exerts a huge influence upon every single soul living in these nations to forget heaven and to enjoy itself in such a way as to deserve hell when they die. The modern way of life of the modern European nations is putting millions of souls on track for hell, when Almighty God created these nations and created all of these human beings for heaven. God did not create this universe to populate hell, He created it to populate heaven. Therefore, Almighty God Himself will put a stop to these Western nations, and the way in which He is doing it is by creating such a natural dissatisfaction in all of these immortal souls, immortal whether they want to be or not, in all these immortal souls being sunk into, pushed into, propaganded into a materialistic and godless way of life, so that they will go to populate hell. That's how Almighty God is punishing these godless nations. And that is the root of these riots. And not one of these supposedly intelligent, supposedly insightful, supposedly observant commentators even mentions the real cause of these riots.